Hello, online world. This is Off the Record with Migs Bustos. And for today's episode, this is a Father's Day special. Makakakwentuhan natin ng isa sa mga legends from the Ateneo Blue Eagles. Walang iba kundi si Chris Chu. Chris is known to make a mark for the Ateneo Blue Eagles in the PBA and also with Gilas, Pilipinas. But more than his basketball achievements, I will talk to Chris on what it's like on life after basketball, being a dad, being a husband, and an all-around individual. And here is that interview. Thank you, Chris. All right, so
No problem.
now we have Chris Chu on Off the Record. Hello, Chris. I hope you're doing well.
Hi,
Kamusta?
Migs. Okay, thanks for having me. I'm doing okay. Thankfully, the family's together and healthy. Business has been challenging, I think, for most, if not all. But we're many reasons to stay happy and to feel blessed. So yeah, we're here.
All right, so now, Chris, the basketball world knows about your story, your journey with Ateneo, and then with the PBA and Gilas. But now I just want to focus on, since this is a Father's Day special, I want to focus on life after basketball. I want to focus on Chris Chu, the person, the dad, the husband.
Okay.
And I know that a lot of values you've learned in sports, you've also applied in life. So can you share some of those values that you get to apply now?
Yeah, definitely. Well, you talked about being a dad. No, I have two daughters, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and hopefully more. So, as to the values that I've learned from my career as an athlete, I think my whole life has been shaped by the lessons that I learned throughout the how many decades of my life playing basketball. There's too many to talk about. I'll pick out a few, siguro. I think number one would be learning to fail. And through the game of basketball, I think I've experienced that from day one as a grade school kid trying to make it to the team, being in the bench position of being a bench warmer for different phases of my career, from grade school, high school, even college and professionally. It wasn't all smooth sailing. I had a flat adjustment curve in every stage of basketball. And when you're an athlete, every day you're competing. So even as simple drills where you race, where you have to do shooting drills, you are losing if a lot of times, if not more often than winning. And then you move up to playing tune-up games, a scrimmage with your team, practice games, tournaments, and the stakes get bigger and bigger, and you work harder and harder, but you keep losing, you keep failing, individually and as a team. Individually, you can go through being cut, being benched, not improving for whatever reason, getting injuries, a lot of things beyond your control. As a team also, you think you've done everything you could to prepare, but the variables or the cards, the breaks don't fall your way, or sometimes there are even injustices in different forms, and you get disappointed, you get frustrated, but how do you deal with it? A lot of times people or the media and the fans would like to focus on the glamour and the successes of the superstars or super teams, and it's about winning awards, winning scoring titles, highlight plays. But I think what sports has really developed and instilled in athletes and coaches and people involved in it is the value of resiliency and perseverance, because of all these day-to-day challenges that you have to deal with, and also dealing with losing. How do you cope? Do you make excuses? Do you blame your teammate? Do you blame all sorts of things, or do you man up and try to do better, to work harder, to find solutions, diba? And I think that's a very important lesson that I appreciate now, and I see in amongst athletes, when they got into the real world, they're used to it. And aside from that, I think being in a team sport is a um, valuable advantage. Learning to play your role. Whether you're the superstar or you're the sixth man or a bench player, playing your part in a team setting. When you got into the real world, you have your own business, or you're in a part of an organization. You have to understand that, and not everybody can be Michael Jordans or Kobe Bryant's, diba?
How about being a dad, Chris?
Being a dad, I think I realized that there's no shortcut to being a dad. Just like in sports, if you want to improve your game, you want to be a better player, you want to make it to the national team, you want to make it to the professional ranks, or even a school team, there's no shortcut. You cannot just sit there and not practice and expect that you'll be called by the coach and be given a first five position, diba? Or a starting role. In the same way, you got to work for it, diba? In the same way, being a dad, and you want to raise kids, that are responsible and that are virtuous, and Christ-centered. You cannot leave that to somebody else to do. You cannot leave them with technology all the time. And if you're tired and they're getting irritable, you just give them the iPad, diba? That's a shortcut parenting. Bigay mo na lang yan, tatahimik ka lang, relax ka na, you can do whatever you want, you can be busy pursuing your passions, developing your career, and you leave them with a relative, a caregiver, diba? Iba yung physical presence and of a dad being there and really talking to the kids, spending time understanding them, knowing what goes through their mind, their emotions, and then talking to them, teaching them life lessons and telling them stories, just being with them. So that's what I learned. And I think if I was to choose one thing, that parenting, just like sport, there's no shortcuts to it. So
going back to when you announced your retirement, was that early 2019, and
yes.
Basketball world came to a shock, and knowing that you could still play, but you announced your retirement and to focus on your life as an entrepreneur, as a family man. Then what was that decision like for you to go to the next page?
Actually, it wasn't very difficult. In all honesty, I already knew it. The start of the PBA season, I just didn't want to announce it prematurely. I know the team owners wanted me to stay on. The fans also wanted me to stay on and play. And I think I was doing relatively well. And I was actually improving pa. I was getting more playing time finally, and I was adapting to the way that PBA was being played and all that. So, but I felt like I've been playing for many years, and there are other things in life that I wanted to pursue. And if I wanted to build a career in business, for example, I have to start now. I mean, I was always an entrepreneur, but it's different when you're part-time basketball, part-time businessman. The focus, you cannot totally leave let's say you have morning practices for the team, the basketball, and then afternoon you go to the office. You're kind of splitting your concentration and your body's recovery and development also if you're doing both, diba? So you cannot just think that, okay, I play a game and then done, I'll go to the office. Diba? It's not it. It's you before you go to a game and after, you have to think about it. You have to be mentally ready, even especially more than, physical is important, but mentally is equally important, and emotionally also. And I'm the type of player, if we lose, I have a hard time getting over it. I keep thinking about it and trying to see what I could have done better. And so many things go through my head. And the same thing in doing business. You cannot just go out there and make decisions without being fully immersed, without meeting and always reading up on what's happening in your industry and in the economy. So I decided if I want to be, successful in the field of business, which I plan to pursue in the next stage of my life now until whenever, I'm going to have to start somewhere, and I can't keep playing basketball forever. And in terms of basketball, I think I've done and achieved what I wanted to. I was given opportunity to play for the national team, to play in the PBA. We won a championship, and I started to to see what I could do already inside the court individually in terms of scoring and leadership and in the national team and in the PBA. So, I felt like tama na yun. There's
You've
give chance.
achieved what you achieved. You said
In that
yeah,
sense, yeah. In that sense, yeah. And
Chris, now in the current stage of your life, you said that you're a dad of two. And how is the influence naman of sports as being a dad to your two daughters?
How is the influence of sports on me as a father, you mean? Or
to your daughters?
To the family. To my daughters. Well, my youngest daughter has watched maybe 1 or 2 years, but she was just a few months old, so she barely remembers anything. My eldest daughter, who's now 4, was around 2.5 when I was about to retire. And luckily, she was able to catch a couple of my games. And she, there, very serendipitous that my last game, where I was awarded best player, and interviewed, post game. She was there in that game. Of course, we knew that I was going to return my last game, so my wife made sure to bring the 2 daughters to be there. So I won. I was awarded best player. So my daughter, for the first time, was able to sit with me on my lap while being interviewed, and she saw herself on the big screen in Araneta Coliseum up, and she just got excited and kilig, and until now, she remembers that, Daddy, that was your last game, and she would ask me from time to time, why did you stop playing basketball? Why you stop playing? It's it's funny, and you wouldn't think that somebody at that age is so has such a vivid memory and so curious that sometimes it's just hard to explain things to them. But at least she was able to witness a few games, and thanks to YouTube and social media now, at least I won't have to convince them that, or try to make them believe that I was actually a national athlete or a professional basketball player. Because when they grow up and I tell them that, they probably, Daddy, are you sure you were a national athlete? Yeah. When I'm 20 pounds heavier, or and how much slower, they probably won't believe. But at least now they can watch the game. So and hopefully that will also encourage them to get into sports, because like what I said, the value of sports and the character and the values that the person can gain from it, especially at a young age, is so important. And I think it's a recipe for success for any individual that we cannot learn in the classroom. It might be difficult to learn in other environments.
Chris, lastly now, I guess the message that I want to come across is it's common that you have your teammates, your former teammates who were also dads, but now for the ordinary people like us watching this video, dads to be, husbands to be, what is your advice for soon to be dads? Ako soon to be dad ako, and I want to take your advice on how to move forward, how to apply sports, especially the ones who have background, and at the same time to maybe live a colorful life as much as possible.
As dad and husband, no? So first of all, congratulations, Migs.
Thank you, Chris.
This is one of those milestones in life which I would probably rank up there in terms of the joy that it brought to me. Having that first child was just like a miracle. And from the time that my wife told me she was pregnant, and seeing a heartbeat in the ultrasound, and then the spine, and then the thing coming to life, and then coming out there in the delivery room, it just literally brought tears to me. And one of the greatest blessings in my life, and I would assume in your life and in the lives of fathers as well. So I guess the first is to not take for granted that we have this opportunity to be a father, and the joy that our kids and our wives can bring us is I think special in that sense. And the joy of winning a basketball game is different from this, because this is life. This is your family is your life. And ultimately, I think what we all realize during this ECQ or the pandemic is that at the end of the day, we learn to value our family and our wives or kids even more, because anything can be taken for us in an instant, diba? And we realize that we're such a small speck in the bigger scheme of things. So time and the chance to be with family is a huge blessing already, which we oftentimes take for granted. So my advice, as a father, like I think we touched on it earlier. So one, appreciate it. Two, there's no shortcut to parenting, just like in sport, and then as a husband naman, soon, well, you're a husband already.
Yes.
First, your wife has to be your best friend. Like you said you were 10 years together before you got married. We were 13 years together before we got married, and now we're married for 7 years this year. So
Wow.
to 20 years now, yeah. And as a couple, you were, maybe when we were single, we're used to making decisions on our own. But now to remember that we are one, and decisions we make must be always together. We make joint decisions in terms of our goals as a family, financially, and also, let's say, in terms of career. We don't just pursue things without consulting our spouse. Even with our kids, where to put our kids to school, what to let them do, or what to pursue in terms of extracurricular activities. It has to be a joint decision. I think another thing that I appreciate most with my wife is that she would really emphasize and make an effort for us to discover God, and appreciate our faith even more all the time. It's consistent. I mean, there are times when, of course, we are a little bit we slack off a bit, but when we do it together and we try to understand and appreciate the message of the gospel and our faith, I think we have a different perspective in life, and it makes you grow stronger as a couple also. And maybe lastly, as a husband, advice as a husband was, it's not sometimes, but most of the time, it's better to be happy than to be right. We will have our arguments. You'll have your arguments, if not every day, many times, and trying to insist that you're right and that your way is, or your thoughts are, your opinion is, will get you nowhere. And sometimes we have to learn to just let go of our pride and just, okay, just sometimes just accept that
True.
she feels that way, we feel this way. There's no need to who's right, who's wrong. No, that's not important. You're happy, diba? We have to also, I guess, stretch our patience and learn to forgive, because like this lockdown, I'm sure, is really tested us. We were with our spouses 24/7, and it was probably almost impossible that there was no argument that occurred during the last 90 days, diba? Kakainisan yan, sigurado yan. So, I think that's one of the things that we have to, the values that we must instill, value of patience and learning to forgive. And at the end of the day, just appreciate that the blessing of having a spouse that you love and who loves you, and having kids and the family is healthy and together. Yeah, I hope I'm able to maybe give some thought to some
Of course.
people. So
Yeah.
something to think about.
Yeah.
But not everybody may agree with my views. This is just me. People have their own ways of thinking.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Definitely, Chris, your message, your story has inspired our viewers for today. And of course, Chris, happy Father's Day to you. Thank you
Happy
so much
Father's
for
Day
joining us.
in advance.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Chris. And that was
Awesome.
Chris Chu, of course, joining us here in Off the Record. And see you the next episode.